G20, Trump and Xi to meet amid U.S.-China trade tensions. Donald Trump is to meet China's President Xi Jinping after the G20 summit in their first talks since a trade war erupted earlier this year. Mr. Trump said he hoped they would reach a deal during their dinner in Buenos Aires to defuse trade disagreements and said he believed Beijing wanted this. A Chinese official meanwhile said consensus is steadily increasing but differences remained. Both sides have imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods. On Friday, Mr. Trump briefly met Russian President Vladimir Putin on the sidelines of the G20, a Russian official told Reuters. Earlier, the U.S. president said he had postponed a planned press conference out of respect for the Bush family, following the death of former President George H.W. Bush, at the age of 94. During the G20, emerging economies denounced protectionism. Chile's President Sebastián Piñera told the BBC he hoped for a deal to end what he called this nonsense of a tariff war. However, the U.S. Trade Representative, Robert Lighthizer, said he would be surprised if Mr. Trump's working dinner with Mr. Xi wasn't a success. Meanwhile, Wang Ziyalong, Director General of the Foreign Ministry's Department of International Economic Affairs, said negotiations between Chinese and U.S. officials were making some progress. The U.S. has hit $250 billion of Chinese goods with tariffs since July, and China has retaliated by imposing duties on $110 billion of U.S. products. Earlier this month, the Trump administration accused China of not changing its unfair practices. Beijing meanwhile has accused the U.S. of starting the largest trade war in economic history. U.S.-China trade divisions also meant an Asian Economic Summit earlier this month was unable to agree a formal leaders' statement for the first time in its history. During the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation (APEC) Summit, Mr. Xi took a swipe at the U.S.'s America First policy by saying that countries that embraced protectionism were doomed to failure. Ahead of the G20, Mr. Trump told U.S. media he expected to go ahead with plans to raise tariffs on $200 billion of Chinese goods, first introduced in September, to 25%, up from 10%, starting in January 2019. Mr. Trump also said that if talks were unsuccessful, he would carry out a threat to hit the remaining $267 billion of annual Chinese exports to the U.S. with tariffs of 10 to 25%.